Hello, everybody. Morning. It is still morning as well, which is impressive. Cool. So, we've heard a lot about Zaccheus this morning. We've heard that Zaccheus was short. We now know that Zaccheus is shorter than the Eiffel Tower, shorter than a giraffe, shorter than a Range Rover, but we're not sure whether he's shorter than Wayne Rooney. We've heard the Bible story, and we've heard that Zaccheus was a very little man. But as usual, I come to you with some questions. I know. And my first question is, why did Zaccheus want to meet Jesus? Like Zaccheus, whilst he was a lonely guy, or at least it said in that reading that Zaccheus was a lonely guy, in the Bible it just tells us that he's rich. So why did he want to meet Jesus? And my second question is, what happened when they met? Because we know what the outcome was, but how did that happen? So we'll talk about those two questions. Zaccheus lived in Jericho. And so what I did was I thought, well, had Jesus been to Jericho before? I thought that was a good question. And the answer is yes. He had been to Jericho before, and when he'd been in Jericho before, he had healed a blind beggar called Bartimaeus. I didn't know that happened in Jericho, but it did. And we don't know if Zaccheus was there, because Zaccheus is only mentioned in his own little story. But we all know how the world works. If I lived in Jericho and a blind beggar had been healed, there's a pretty good chance that I would know. Because word travels. Did you see when Bartimaeus got healed? Were you there? Can you tell me more about it? Have you heard the amazing story? And all those whispers would have been about Jesus. I thought we'd hear the Bible story about Bartimaeus. It's very cool. He's another guy who wasn't really expecting to see Jesus, but did. It says, then they came to Jericho. And as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, was sitting by the roadside. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. He was going for a different approach to Zaccheus. He obviously couldn't climb a tree. That wasn't going to end well. So he was just shouting out. And many rebuked him and told him to be quiet. Like the people who wouldn't let Zaccheus through to Jesus, they didn't think he deserved it. But he shouted all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped, same as he did with Zaccheus, and said, call him. And so they called to the blind man, cheer up on your feet, he's calling you. And throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. And Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said, Rabbi, I want to see. And Jesus said, go, your faith has healed you. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. It's an amazing story. It is not every day we see somebody who was blind and now can see. There are stories of that in the world, in all sorts of different parts of the world, particularly in the developing world, of times when people have prayed and people have been healed from blindness, from deafness, from illness, from disease, from all sorts of things. And when that happens, people talk about it. It becomes a topic of conversation. I want to tell you a little bit about my week. I know you're really excited about this. I know! One of my jobs at school is we have a communion service at the end of every term, and I have to provide the music. And because we have to provide the music, we have to sit through communion a number of times because you can't fit the whole school in the hall. So we had this same service a number of times. But the last couple of times, there was a new vicar who just joined the parish that we're in, and his name is Father Dean. And he's a very enthusiastic man, I discovered, and he stood up to give the sermon, and you can see the whole school, because they're really keen to be there, most of them, and they kind of sink into their chairs like, oh. And he got up there, and his opening line was, Jesus is absolutely amazing. And it's like, say it how it is, Father Dean. You know, put it out there. He was showing enthusiasm to this not particularly receptive audience. Now, I don't know how they took it because I was facing the other way. That's kind of how it works in church, is that you're all looking forwards and you can't see who's behind you. But he continued talking to these young people about how important it was that across the summer they thought about Jesus, they read their Bible, they found out about Jesus, and that was there. And I was thinking, that's a challenge, isn't it? Do we talk about Jesus in this way? Do we tell people that Jesus is absolutely amazing? Do we talk about our church family in this way? Do we give testimony in our everyday life? Do we tell people what Jesus means for us, what Jesus has done for us? Do our friends and our family know that Jesus is absolutely amazing? And this led me to the book of James. I know, it's a dangerous book. But one of the things it says the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. I think we all know about that one at the moment. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. And I was thinking about when we say things and when we talk to people about whatever, but particularly about Jesus and about our church experience, what do people remember? Even if we say 5 positive things and 1 negative thing, what people hear in our world is the negativity. They remember the thing that stirs emotion in them. And a lot of the time, people, they like negativity. They're like, oh yeah, that's really bad. But if we want people to be inspired by Jesus, we need to tell them that Jesus is absolutely amazing, that Jesus is awesome, what Jesus has done for us, the good things, the changes that Jesus has made in our life. So, why did Zaccheus want to see Jesus? Because he'd heard about him. He'd heard that Jesus was amazing, that he did amazing things. So my second question was, what happened when they met? And what happened when they met is that Zaccheus was never the same again. What it says in the Bible is Zaccheus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." So he's gone from grasping tax collector, taking extra money, cheating everybody, to somebody who is caring for the poor and is paying back when he's done wrong. So the impact of that would have been massive. He was a person who people knew. When he walked down the street, he wasn't lonely because he didn't know anybody. He was lonely because nobody wanted to associate with him. So when he changed and when he did things as a result of meeting Jesus, word would have traveled fast. Did you see? Were you there? Have you heard? The whispering in Jericho is now about the story of Zaccheus. But not necessarily about Zaccheus, still about Jesus. Zaccheus was never the main character in this story. We've talked about him a lot today, but the reason we talk about him is because of the change that Jesus made in his life. And he's just one example. The Gospels don't tell us everything and everyone that Jesus met and encountered and everything that he did, but it gives us examples of his impact. So, that leads us back to our call to worship, which comes from the end of this story about Zaccheus. Our call to worship was Luke 19, verse 10. It says, "The Son of Man has come to seek and to save the lost." The Son of Man, that is Jesus, who is absolutely awesome. He is seeking. He is looking for those who don't know him. But what we notice about Zaccheus is that although he didn't know Jesus, he had heard about Jesus. And the reason the encounter happened was because he had heard enough about Jesus that he knew that he was somebody he wanted to know. So what are we doing about that? Are we telling people how awesome Jesus is so that they want to come and meet him? So that when they see something about Jesus in the world, they're like, "Oh, that's that person that somebody was talking about. That's what I've heard about. I need to go and find out more." And then it says not only is the Son of Man seeking those people, but also saving those people. That after meeting Jesus, no one is the same. We all know that Jesus brings salvation and eternal life, and that is what comes when we meet Jesus. But if we've met Jesus and that isn't awesome enough for us to tell other people about it, have we actually met Jesus?